All right, it looks like we are live. I think we're
Yep.
here. So good morning, Lisa.
Good morning, Delinda.
How you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm enjoying the nice cool of the morning while it lasts.
These mornings out here, as I've been saying to everybody for the last 3 or 4 weeks, are just so amazing. And
Yeah.
I know we get a lot of people who watch us from Kansas City, and sometimes still the Kansas City mornings haven't quite gotten to this nice part. They've had so much
Yeah.
rain. I think they're really all ready to be over the rain. So
Yeah.
I'm going to do my first little just hi out there. Make sure that the comment box is working. And my thing's always giving me little messages. So sometimes if you see me, look over to the sides because I'm checking things out. Oh, okay. It actually said hi in both of the things. That's cool.
Yeah,
A
there's Kathy.
deluge. Oh, as I was talking about the rain, Kathy says deluge. So another day of rain. Oh my gosh. I know you got to be so tired of it, which is not good for the whole bugs issue, right? You know, the bugs and the humidity for summer are going to be pretty heavy, I would guess, just because of all the rain that you guys had. She said,
Good
"Good
morning from
morning
Soggy
from the."
Land.
And of course, now I was sitting outside. Now, last week the trash truck didn't come till later, but I'm noticing it's right out there now. So hopefully it's not going to be too
Perfect
distracting.
timing.
But kind of is what it is, right?
Yep.
So, Kathy, what did you do this weekend? And I'm going to, since you're there, and I know you, did you get to see the grandkids this weekend? I bet she did. And while she types on what she did this weekend, what about you, Lisa? So I know a little bit of what you did, but how was your weekend and what did you do?
I've been working on a chicken coop. That's why I have wood in the back.
Ah,
And then we went out and did some shooting and practicing teaching somebody. So and that was pretty fun too.
yeah, yeah. Which is when we get into talking about the reasons that we're grateful to be an American, the right to bear arms is one of those that you
Yes,
can go out
definitely.
and learn to shoot. And I know you and I are going to go out together. You're going to
Yes, we
teach
are.
me. I know we're going to do that. And so I'm looking forward to that. My sister has started lessons up in Utah. She's had 3 or 4 now, and
Nice.
so it's just a good thing to know to learn, right?
It is. And
So,
it actually is a lot of fun. The first thing that Cheryl said was, wow, could get addictive, you know.
ah,
So,
very good. Kathy says this was a catch-up time. Blog, website, videos. Wow, that's good. It's
mm,
kind of nice to have
we've been
when you
busy.
have an extra day when you can really get into a project. That was my goal for the weekend. My goal was I was going to update my customer list. I
Mm,
didn't get to one customer or client list. I didn't even sit down to get that. Um, then I having never lived in a tourist state, although Nevada is, but it's not the same as like Destin, Florida, and Aspen, Colorado, where it's so seasonal kind of thing. We are having a heck of a time finding a place. We wanted to go spend the month of August there to really see if we really like it. Well,
hmm
first of all, if I want to break the bank, I could do that. But trying to find a place, a furnished rental for a month at a reasonable, what I feel is a reasonable price, is almost impossible to find. So
Yeah.
that's what I wound up spending the whole weekend, was really looking at that. And like I said, moving furniture, because one more time we've decided to shift things around. And part of that is because of putting, if we decide to put the house up for sale, you have to have the house look open and airy, so all the things that over time I just kind of set these things out, the pictures out, and the extra stuff. So now you have to look at it through somebody else's eyes so they can visualize their stuff, and it's not all about your stuff, kind of. So moving furniture, and we switched around bedrooms. It's like, oh my gosh, I must be crazy to be thinking of doing this again. Bill said, well, maybe we'll hit 20 by the time we totally quit moving. We're at 17. So, this
Oh,
move,
wow.
if we moved to Desden. And ultimately, the truth is, and Kathy, this is a little fun for us, there is that ultimately we really believe we'll wind up in Kansas City because that's where the kids are, their spouses, families, that's where they are. And of course, then that's where the grandkids are. So at some point we will be back there so that we can have more relationship and time with the kids and stuff. I'm just not quite ready for that yet. I'm not ready to give up my, we love Vegas. So anyway, I've decided maybe I'm just selfish because we just really like our life out here. But anyway, that's what's going on with us, just in case any of y'all wanted to know. So any ideas on how to get through? But really, even the Marriott hotels that usually you can stay in for, the town suites, the lower end of the Marriott family, for 100, 150, 190 maybe, or 350, 450 a night in this seasonal time. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
they can get very expensive.
Yeah, so it does. It does. So, and I'm sure they do that on the strip as well. In the days when things were in such demand, then they can do those. And when they have those big sports weekends, I'm sure they do the same thing. But it doesn't affect us and how we live out here, right?
Yeah.
So, Lisa, it was Memorial Day weekend, and our theme this morning. Hey, Karen. Good morning. Our theme this morning is proud to be an American. I am so proud to live in this country. And I just, I'm taking off a little bit from my post last night in that, my dad served, he was in several things. He started really young. I think the age was probably 18, and I'm not so sure that he didn't cheat a little bit to get in earlier than 18.
Was he a career military man?
Yes, he was. He was a career military, and so he went in as an enlisted man, and then he decided to leave, and then he decided that he really did like being in the military, so he went back in and went to OCS and became an officer, and then he finished as a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and he was a navigator. His eyes weren't, this is weird, but his eyes weren't good enough to be a pilot. Right. So he was a navigator instead. And, but anyway, yeah, so that, I learned the moving from a very early age. We never lived any place more than 3 years. And usually it was like 2. So I think I get that wanderlust or the, I feel like I have to move every 2 or 3 years. Like, we've been here. Isn't it time to move?
Yep.
Kind of crazy. So, what are you thankful for being an American? What hits you this morning?
I like the fact that the American that I grew up in felt like a family. In bad times and good times, that there was an acceptance of people. Now, maybe I lived in an idyllic situation, but I guess I accepted everybody from my perspective. So, but to me, America felt like we all belonged together no matter what our circumstances were, and we were family. And that's what it's meant to me to be proud to be an American, because, family sticks with it and does whatever it takes, and you care for each other and all that kind of stuff. So, and that's my America in my brain.
I love that, and I have to say I hadn't really thought about that, but I think you're absolutely right. I think that there has been a lot of change, since we were young, in the last however many 20, 30, 40 years or something. And it was, and we would come together, just if any other country or entity would come against our country, we pulled together. It was that thing, we're Americans, and you can't, you can't stop us. You're not going to defeat us, and it really was. And a lot of that has changed, particularly over these last however many years. I don't even know where to say that is. So I think it's important for us. That's why, having these kind of conversations, I think, is really good, because it's up to each of us in our own lives, in our families, in our neighborhoods, in our churches to keep that kind of thing alive. And being an American also to me is like always means, we have the freedom to dream. I mean, that's been the
Yeah.
American dream. How many, immigrants and people come over because they don't have those freedoms where they're coming from, and they just want to come here and find a better life. And
Yeah.
I think we're good
I
at that.
really I really started appreciating America when I started teaching genealogy, and you might wonder what in the world the two have to do with each other, but I started realizing that being American was a genetic trait that of people who desired freedom. And as you see the migratory patterns, in genealogy, one of the ways you do the research is you study migratory patterns. And so you study the history that is involved in each migration, etc. And you notice these people, they're fighters, they were religious, they loved education, and they kept moving to find that. And they move, all those migratory patterns move and converge on America. And that is a genetic trait, in my opinion, in my opinion, that
Huh.
we have in America. We have that desire for freedom and desire for education and religious freedom, written right down into the DNA code.
Wow. I would never have thought about that.
Well, you know me, I'm always in a corner thinking of things.
Oh, well, I know, but you help us think differently. In case you can't tell, I'm actually moving since now the neighbors let the dog out. Okay, so let's just come inside and
And
try
I'm
it.
not the only one that has said that it's a genetic trait. There's some people out there doing some patriotic work in America right now who have come to that similar conclusion that it is a genetic trait and that freedom's really written right in our bones.
And I'm wondering how that also may relate to our freedom of spiritually. It's like um, that freedom to come together, and we want to be open in our beliefs and our belief in Christ, and you know that thing of knowing we're missing something when we don't have that.
Yeah.
I would think those probably go together.
Well, and Memorial Day is about those who gave their life. I mean, when you give your life, that's a pretty hefty payment on that line to defend freedom. And
Absolutely.
boy, do I sure appreciate the men and women who have sacrificed time, who have sacrificed, and it goes both ways. Mothers, fathers, like you, who your dad was busy and moving. There was a lot of sacrifice in your life and in his. And I remember when they folded the flag at my dad's funeral, and I remember thinking how cool it was that he had served and he wasn't in the military very long, just in Korea for a couple of years, I think. But there was a lot that he went through there for that war, and not every war was purposeful or perfect or etc. But it was in their hearts to serve. It was in their hearts to protect their families, and that's just amazing to me.
It really is. And as I said in my post last night, my dad had two brothers. So he and his two brothers served, and I think they were each in different. One of them was in the Army. Dad was in the Air Force. I think both the other uncles must have been Army. And then he had four sisters, and I think two of the four sisters also served. I mean, that's incredible. That is something they really, I think you're right, were born with. That somewhere was instilled that this was the right thing to do. This is what you do for your country. And I don't know if people still feel that. I mean, we have a lot of people serving, and like you say, so grateful for that. But it
Mhm.
hurts me when I hear people negate that, or act like that's no big deal, because it is a really big deal to put your life for your country. You think, would you with your life, would you protect your family? Yes, of course you would. You'd do anything. You'd step in front of a shooter, you whatever, to protect your kids and your grandkids and stuff. But to go out and put your life on the line for a whole bunch of people you don't know, I mean, that's, of course, that's what Jesus did.
Well,
Jesus put
you
his
know,
life for everybody.
freedom is something and similar, and this is a simplistic analogy, but it's similar to having running water and air conditioning and, you know, gas to heat your stove. We've had that so long, we just take it for granted. And, last time I had my grandkids up here was when we had that major blackout here in Las Vegas. And I don't think it affected your area, but up here in the Northwest, we had I think it was like 20,000 or 30,000 homes that were without power for over, I don't know, 20 hours or something like that. And that's a very short period of time. but
Yeah, but
but
it
it's
probably
like,
felt long.
it felt a lot longer than you would think. And, in Texas, where they had the freezing weather and the power outages, I watched them. If we had freedom blackouts, maybe people would appreciate that freedom and that cost and what we live with and are blessed with so much more than they do.
Absolutely. And of course, one of the big ones for me that I'm so grateful is the freedom of religion, that we can
Yes.
all go and outwardly, we can go to lunch and say prayer and be grateful for
Yeah.
the food. We can go to church services of any denomination. It's like, doesn't matter. You get to choose, and you get to go to what church you want, or you have the right, to choose. This Sunday I'm going, and next Sunday I'm not. It's like just the freedom to do that, and to talk about it, like right now, to talk about it.
Uh-huh.
And in this time where there is so much, what seems to be so much censoring going on, and not wanting us to express our opinions, it scares me a little bit to think
Well,
that we're losing some of those, and I don't want to lose those. This is who we are.
yeah, and if you look to other nations that had democracy and freedoms like us, those freedoms are being greatly encroached upon. It's the people who would like to not have us have freedoms are encroaching very carefully to see what they can do. And it's important for us to support all of the efforts that have been done before us to keep freedom alive and well. Freedom's something that's like a plant. It doesn't just exist. It has to be nurtured.
Mm-hmm. And it can quickly be eroded away, and it's
Yeah.
done often so subtly. Right now, it doesn't seem so subtle. It seems like it's being pretty bold. But I think for years there have been undercurrents of people, entities, whatever, trying to erode those freedoms and subtly change our thoughts to accept things that we wouldn't have accepted 20 years ago. So
Exactly.
there's that agenda that's going on,
Yep.
and then now it's pretty out there in your face. So,
Slowly boiling the frog.
huh?
I said slowly boiling the frog.
Right. And so I think for all of us as believers in particular, and we do, obviously, our freedom of religion is extremely important to all of us, but it's also gives us that opportunity to be careful, to make sure that we're paying attention to the signs around us, that we honor and respect each other, and that what you're talking about earlier, being a family and accepting each other, different nationalities and different races, all that stuff doesn't matter. It's like people, we're connected, our
Yeah.
hearts and our spirits are connected. And the more that we can give out that kind of spirit, that the more we can accept people with open arms and try to increase the conversation, or open the conversation and say, well, I don't understand. why you're saying that. Could you just explain it to me? There's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with saying, I don't know, or I don't understand. And it doesn't mean you have to change how you believe, but
Right.
at least if you open up, maybe you might learn something. Maybe you understand, how other people feel about things. And I think that all goes back to our freedom to be who we are, who God created us to be.
Hmm. Yes, I agree.
There's your doggy going by.
Yep, that's Dakota. She's going in and out, in and out. Of course.
Linda Parrish says, good morning. Tina White, good morning. Nice to see you guys here. This is great. Um, so, those of you who are on and watching, so if you could just name one, what would you name as um, the freedom that you most appreciate? I don't know. And I actually, I probably left my notebook outside. So, as Americans, the Bill of Rights, the first 10, and I think I knew this earlier in my life, but I forgot. So I'll just be real with you guys. So I thought, I'm going to go in, I'm going to look at the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And what I had forgotten or whatever was that the Bill of Rights are actually the first 10 amendments. And so, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom to bear arms, the freedom, one of them that again, somewhere back in history and in school, I'm sure I learned it, but I need to freshen up my brain, was that the militia or the army cannot take over your house in times of peace.
Yeah.
They cannot come in and just take over your house. But
Yeah,
and it is
and
even in, huh?
yeah, and you know what? I have a story about that because I'm always teasing my husband that he was a turncoat. His family was a turncoat because, and he always goes, "No, we were patriotic," and but his family's house actually was taken over by the British. And back then, what happened was if a family had a big home, then the rest of the village or city would pitch in and they would build onto that home and that would be the inn for the like an Airbnb, you might think of it, for that
Wow.
for that town. So when important people would come or people would visit other families, they would have a place where somebody could stay, and the towns would do that and contribute. This is way back in the 1700s, and so when the British came, his father's home, and he was a merchant who brought things back and forth across the ocean. Their home was taken over and occupied almost the whole time. So we have journals of that writing and of their feelings about that, and it was scary, it wasn't pleasant, it was an awful situation to have the military take over.
I would think so. And how, interesting that they would think to put that in there, but the reason would be is because they were living that and they
Yes.
wanted, like, okay, in times of peace, and it does say something about in time of war too, but without permission. So basically the militia, the army can't come in and just take over your house because they need a place to headquarters,
Yeah.
and I, being the movie watcher that I am, I've seen that in movies, and like during the Civil War, where
Yes.
the opposite, the Union armies would go in and take over some of the plantations, and that's where they would headquarter out of. And
Yep.
it's like, okay, so that's the reason they put that in there. Kind of interesting,
Well,
right?
and believe it or not, even in modern days, we've actually had the breach of that right in places, and it hasn't been publicized very much, but there were some breaches of that, and even in more modern times. And so we have to be careful to watch that they don't encroach upon those freedoms.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think, it, and again, I'll use myself as an example. The majority of my adult life, I've had my head in the sand. I mean, I just kind of raised the kids and was doing the thing, and I didn't watch the news because it's always negative and unpleasant, and so I just didn't. And it's only been up until recently that I've realized, Delinda, you really have to be a little more aware. You need to pay attention. How can we make a difference? And so,
Yeah.
it is, so
We all
certainly,
have to wake up, definitely.
yeah, I think we're in a time where we do need to really to wake up and see how we can help, how we can make a difference, just in like what we're doing today, just talking
Yeah.
about things, y'all. It's good. It's good
Yeah.
to talk about things.
So we have Linda Parrish says freedom of speech and choice, and Grace Strachan. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I usually mutilate names. She says freedom of speech because in some countries that's being taken away. And then Karen Reyes says freedom for the right to have your own opinion. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, it really is. And I do think that because of kind of what the whole censorship of things that have been going on in this last year in particular, we're all a little more aware of that. We do need to make sure that we can keep our freedom of speech. That's a huge one for
Yeah.
us, you know.
I thought that I'd never see the day when we were giving podcasts or other things and having to censor the words that we use. And some of the words, there's keywords, and a lot of people don't know what keywords are, but in media, you can actually look for certain words and then eliminate them or eliminate the videos or eliminate things. So if you say certain keywords right now, you're being censored. Things are being taken off. It doesn't matter what your opinion is about it. If you use those keywords, what you're saying is going by, and that has really been I never thought we'd see that, because I mean,
Yeah, I know it is. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it really is. And if the whole thing is, we talk about let's give everybody a right to their opinion, but there's so much right now going on that if you do give your opinion, you're ostracized or you're
yes,
put down or you're taken off Facebook or whatever that looks like. And so our freedom of speech is a big one that is becoming a little bit in jeopardy now. So I think as we look how can we protect those freedoms, is
well,
important to look
in the author world, that I had an opportunity to work with a lady who puts together the stories and testimonies of those who were in the Holocaust. And so I was able to meet some of them at some of the meetings that they came into. And they talk about some of the things very much so, and that they're fearful of the things they see because there's encroachments on the freedoms just like at their times. And so I don't know if this is the direction you wanted to go, but anyway, I mean,
this is where we are.
but it's like when you hear somebody who's been through that type of thing where they've run as a 6-year-old through the forest with a Nazi army chasing after them for the things that their parents did, and watched people get shot and killed for freedoms that we just take for granted, it really kind of brings it right up in front and center in front of your face.
And I think the whole idea of our freedoms, all of the freedoms that we have and that we are insured with by the Constitution, um, is just being really grateful for those, really acknowledging and saying,
Gratitude.
yeah, these are our freedoms. This is our Bill of Rights. This is our Constitution, and wanting to protect it and be grateful for it. And I think it's important to look at history. I mean, and my husband's a big history buff. He knows a lot of things historically, and he's done a big study. He must have, I don't know, if not every Civil War book and Lincoln and he's read all these books, and it's really those are all things that have brought us to this point. You can't just erase it and pretend like it never happened. How people were treated was wrong. I mean, there's a lot of wrongs that through time we've tried to correct those, and we're still not perfect. But we can't just erase the history, because if we erase the history, we erase the lessons, and we don't want to go back and have to relearn the lessons. If you don't learn the lesson, you're going to have to live through it again.
Yep.
So, and that's one of those kind of, in my thought, kind of one of those profound things, whether it's history or finances. If you don't learn the lessons the first few times, you're going to just keep going through them. If you've had 5 terrible relationships, if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting what you get. So where are you going to learn the lesson, right?
Well, and obviously mankind has lost those lessons from time to time, because you can see how history does repeat itself many, many times. So we need to be wiser and more
Yeah, we
grateful.
do. We need to
I,
look at things and look at both sides. Look at what
mhm.
you know, what were the people dealing with at that time, and what brought us to that place. And then in the case of the Civil War, a whole war tore apart the country.
Mhm.
Families were against each other. I mean, it's horrific. The whole thing. It makes me
That's
so
horrific.
sad. But hopefully, and even then in the riots in the 60s, we were alive watching that. I remember
Mhm.
watching on TV, and it's like heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
it scared me last, was it just last summer when we had some of
Mhm.
that same kind of unrest going
Rioting.
on in our
Yeah.
cities. And it's like, okay, haven't we learned? And in some ways we haven't learned the lessons. We keep having to repeat them. So bless you. Back on the thing for you. So I think appreciating our freedoms, being open and accepting of each other, coming together as America, as a family. I love how you opened up with that this morning, because I think that's very true. Um,
Yeah.
and just, trying to accept each other more, respect each other more, and share the good things, share the great things that we do, have freedom of speech. We do have freedom of religion. Right now, we still have all these freedoms,
Right.
and we want to keep them.
Well, and as a family, we share the same, bloodlines. Again, doing genealogy, you realize how few bloodlines there really are in this world, and how much DNA we share. It's we're the same people. So yeah.
Well, in the beginning, I think there were two people,
Yeah.
Adam and Eve.
I agree.
So if you go all the way back to the back of the beginning, Adam and Eve, and then after the flood, there was Noah and the ark. And,
But
but
I
they
think
still were connected.
yeah, but I think we forget that we're family, and so part of supporting freedom and part of this great nation and supporting it is remembering, that we're all God's children and in that same family, just like you said, with two people started this.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, well, great conversation this morning, Lisa. Thanks so much for being on.
Oh, you're
I always
welcome.
love it when you're available.
Oh,
And
it's fun to be here.
thanks so much. And everybody who's on with us, good morning. And Terry Ann, I see you. Good morning to you as well. Spread the message, everybody. You can share the link with other, people in your groups and on your pages. And, maybe we touched on some things that people hadn't thought about before, and maybe they would like to be part of that thought process that we're sharing this morning. So anyway, thanks so much for being here. Any last comments you want to say, Lisa?
Just the gratitude. I like the fact that you brought up gratitude, and I'm so thankful for all that we have and the people who defended it.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for all of our military, those that are no longer with us, but those that are serving now. Thank you, because you're out there on the front lines, and we so appreciate it and appreciate you. And if you have family members, let them know that we're saying thank you to them for their service. So, all
Okay.
righty then. Remember, everybody, that life is not a matter of chance; it's a matter of choice. And you know what? We can choose to be grateful or not. So choose to be grateful, choose to reach out to others, and let's bring our country back as one big family. Isn't that a great goal? Yeah. Woo. All right. Love you, everybody. Thank you so much. Lisa, thanks again. And we'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye.